Welcome to MazzaMedia. We're live. It is Saturday evening, November the 8th. Halloween is come and gone. It's already over a week ago, and Thanksgiving is coming up really soon. So this is an incredible time of year. It's a busy time of year. The clocks changed last weekend, so we got a lot less daylight than we usually do, which is why I spent my afternoon catching up on yard work. I had a lot of leaves to take care of, and I use a battery-powered leaf blower, and it was a lot of work. It took me 3 hours to get everything done, and I did some raking as well, and my rake snapped at one point, so I'm going to see if I can get a new one at some point. But I got mostly 95% of what I set out to do today I got done, so I was happy about that. Originally, was pondering doing the show around 12:30, 1 o'clock today, but I said, I don't know if I want to waste the daylight. I don't want to do a show that might be 2 hours or longer, lose all the daylight time. And then, is it the leaf thrower or the leaf blower? I don't know. What do they call it? I don't know. Leaf thrower, leaf blower. I don't know. But yeah, I was out there, got the work done. Now sunlight's gone. So now it's evening time. Let's do a show. And yeah, I think, well, you know what it is too? I used to play a lot of street hockey when I was a kid. And that's usually what happens. I'm used to just, firing pucks and all that. That happens. But hey, what are you going to do? That happens. I'm a big guy. What you going to do? So it's actually my second rake I've broken this year. So yeah, leaf blower. People saying leaf blower. Other people say leaf thrower. I guess I usually call it a leaf blower, but that's all good. Got the work done. You know what the worst part about it is when the wind comes in the opposite direction. It happened to me a lot last year. It's been windy for days out here in Massachusetts with no sign of stopping. It's going to be cold at some point next week, too, so we'll see what's going to end up happening with the weather. But other than that, we got a show tonight that's going to go through a range of topics. There's going to be a pretty hefty portion of tonight's show that is Karen Reed-based. There's also going to be a portion of this show that is Kelsey Fitzsimmons based. And I heard that leaf blowers do work very good in snowstorms, especially when you're trying to find taillight. That much is for sure. So, all right. Kelsey Fitzsimmons Defense Fund is the featured defense fund for tonight's program. This is not a formal defense fundraiser show or GiveSendGo fundraiser show for her tonight. We'll have another one coming up soon. We will talk about Kelsey Fitzsimmons. I will talk about her GiveSendGo, of course, and we will talk about a lot of great developments that are happening her way. But for tonight, I'm going to open up with Karen Reed-related matters, and then we're going to transition to Kelsey Fitzsimmons later in the show and make sure she gets some coverage as well. Yeah, I got solo cups. I got pomegranate seltzer water tonight, so that's a good flavor. Polar released their winter flavors, but they did not include the pomegranate champagne, which I drank a lot of the past couple winters, but I'm just going to have pomegranate instead. But usually cranberry lime is my go-to. So, big night here, big week. There was a lot of Karen Reed news. Bruins won a lot of big games this week. I watched 2 Bruins games this week, both in over. One of them was overtime, then they won in the shootout. The other one was an overtime victory right at the end. Mind you, which was awesome. M. Fetters, thank you so much for tuning in as well. But yeah, we're going to talk about Karen Reed-related matters because a lot's happened. A lot has gone down this past week. A lot of news from Karen Reed. There's been some attorney shuffling. There's been some news in Canton with Sergeant Goode. There's been some news at the state police. Yeah, also sponsored by Polar. I like that comment. I miss the Hartford Whalers. I do. The first hockey game I ever went to was actually the Bruins Hurricanes, not long after they had moved from Hartford. But I do miss the days of the Hartford Whalers being on the sports channel, which is basically now NBC Boston. But it was awesome having 2 teams, within the Connecticut, Massachusetts area, which was awesome. So I do miss them. Preferred them in Hartford, honestly. But yes, we got a lot to cover. There was a big week. Michael Proctor. There's a lot going on with Michael Proctor. And I know. We loaned you Brady for 3 years. You got 1 Super Bowl. 1 Super Bowl in 3 years is fantastic. If you got at least 1 Super Bowl out of that, that was awesome. Great season. I think that the defense was better with the original Bucs team. But I thought the offense was much better for the most recent Bucs team. So if you basically had the Bucs defense from their first Super Bowl and the Bucs offense from their second Super Bowl victory, it would be probably the best team ever assembled, quite honestly. So, yeah, we did some sports talk last weekend. We talked with Mark Betterow about sports. We did a fundraiser for Kelsey Fitzsimmons last week, $1,500, which was fantastic for her. GiveSendGo and all needs for her. And additionally, that GiveSendGo, once again, pinned to the top of the chat. Can't say that enough. So, yeah, a lot of stuff going on. And Aiden has a new attorney from Justice Served. She will be representing him in the New Jersey area. A lot going on in the New Jersey area related to Aiden Carney that is going on. So we have Karen Reed related news that we're going to talk about right now. I'm caught up in the chat. I love the chat. I always get caught up in the chat. But yes, Proctor, what Proctor did, I'm sure he wakes up every single day and says to himself, man, I should have just stayed out of this one. I should have never did what I did. I should have, Jessica, what's going on? Yeah, Linda is a badass. She's an awesome attorney as well. I like Justice Served a lot. I like their programming. I like their style. What I like about Justice Served so much is I like that they have Linda, who's the attorney, and then they have, I forget the guy's name. I haven't learned his name. I feel almost embarrassed to admit that live on air. But I like how he's done live on the scene interviews with Kelsey Fitzsimmons' lawyers, Tim Bradle, and Julie Hess. Which has been fantastic. So I like their coverage a lot. I like the way they do it. Then he might talk to Linda when he's on scene, or he might actually be back, having a live discussion. Michael, yeah. But I like that a lot. I like their programming a lot. They've been very instrumental in the Kelsey Fitzsimmons coverage, which is very important. Michael Bryant. Oh, he's also attorney as well. Oh, excellent. They are both attorneys. That's excellent. He asked a lot of great questions of Tim Bradle in Salem recently. But yeah, he does a fantastic job. Did not know his name yet. I apologize, but I do like their programming. I like their style. I don't get to watch them as much as I'd like, but I like their style a lot. Love the on the fly, on the scene interviewing he does, coverage he does, and all that. So we got a lot. Oh, excellent! You'll be on the show with Michael on Tuesday night for Veterans Day. Excellent. Thank you to all our veterans as well. Definitely a lot of veterans active duty. It should be post-active duty, I should say. I always confuse that with I confuse. So Memorial Day is for soldiers that lost their lives. Veteran Day is for previous soldiers that served, and then Armed Forces Day is for active duty military personnel. And I got a lot of veterans in my family, and proud to say. Many served in wars, many served in multiple branches. So, every year that's a big thing as well. Just to be thankful for the veterans and all that they do. Military defense is huge. It is the very foundation of our country. If you look at the Revolutionary War, that we basically had to fight to secure our country. And to this very day, defending our nation against everything that comes our way is very, very important. The Coast Guard, the National Guard, the Army, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Navy, all in their own way, doing things that are necessary for our defense across the country and across the world. Many soldiers have served nationwide and worldwide, and that's a very big thing. But we thankful for our soldiers because we know that we got the Space Force now too, correct? But we need defense. We always need defense. We never know what would happen in a world where, you don't have military soldiers that have served our country. And a lot of these veterans are wounded. They are physically, disabled due to serving, whether in a war or in an accident or something that may have happened to them. And that's why it's always important to be thankful for our veterans because these individuals have served our country and, they've done a lot. And it doesn't matter if they served in a war or not. Everyone that's ever served in the military, no matter what their rank was, has contributed to the defense of our nation, and it is extremely important. I see Dennis Sweeney in the chat. Brenda had a great night at the Canton Select Board, and once again gave her humble opinion and delivered another great speech before that select board. And Dennis and Brenda, among all the others in Canton, continue to do a fantastic job, and the people in Canton are seeing change. It's happening over time. It's been a long time thing. 2 years ago, who would have thought that so much of that select board would have changed over the way it did, and it's still going to have an ongoing effect. And Brenda, Dennis, among so many others that are out there week after week. John Como, you see so many others out there. Rita, have been out there and really pushed to have their town changed, and really let those people know that they don't appreciate the way the town's being operated, and they have to get out there week after week, or select board meeting after select board meeting, and get that message across. And Brenda and Dennis have been among those that still meet for standouts, and there were a lot of standouts this past week. Sergeant Peter Murphy among them, that were outside the Canton Police Department at least twice this week, twice that I know of, that were picketing and getting their message across that they're tired of what's going on in their town. And the people of Canton are winning. They are winning. They're getting the results. And I think a lot of times in life, we wanted those results 2 years ago, but over the course of elections and just what's happened with their police department, those long-term changes are coming to fruition. And this is all a result of what everyone's done. And this is the Canton residents, but it's also everybody else that supported Karen Reed, that's actually gone into Canton to support the people of Canton. For a lot of the major standouts, there's been at least two or three major standouts, meaning like it was like probably 50 plus people. But that's all that needs to be done, is to continue to have your voice, get your voice out there and all that. And look what happened to Dennis and Brenda. I think it was the summer of 2024. Acid-filled balloons or whatever it was on their property happened to Rita, happened to at least one other residency. People tried to intimidate them, and they refused to back down, and they refused to be silent, and they continued to do what needs to be done. And they could have moved out of their town. They could have moved out of their town and said, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this. But these folks stood there and decided to take this on. And Peter Murphy among them, who was a former Canton police officer, trained a lot of these police officers and refused to, back down in any way, shape, or form. So definitely a high level of appreciation. And there's been news in Canton, and that's one of the topics of our show tonight is Goode, who has not necessarily been too good at all in terms of what he's gone on and been accused of here. But this is what happens over time, is you start to get long-term results. You start to see over time, people are not in the same position they were at the beginning of all this. There's been lists that have been posted on Twitter this week of people that have been fired, people that have been suspended, people that have retired. All that has gone on, and there's been a lot of change, and we're seeing that more and more and more. Sandra Birchmore is getting more and more justice as time goes on here. There's a lot going on with that, and it's about time. Yeah, but it takes time, and I respect the time frame it takes, even though we do want immediate results. But there was a new indictment charging Matthew Farwell with the death of her unborn son. It got pushed back this week, but still, that's going on. Special appointed prosecutor Cosgrove is in the chat. We see here. I see he's got a page now on Twitter and a page now on YouTube that he's running, doing a great job. I like the call-ins he does. They're funny. But yes, justice for Sandra Birchmore. That's exactly what we need. And I think, in the next year, we're going to start to see, more and more success in terms of wins. We're getting a lot of victories, and this is across the board. We're going to see more justice for Sandra Birchmore, more justice for John O'Keefe, and more justice for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. And we've been working on that. And at long last, we're seeing more and more of our efforts and contributions. And it doesn't matter what your effort and what your contribution has been. It doesn't matter if you've done a YouTube show, been on a YouTube show, if you've been on a space on X, if you've been boots on the ground in Canton, Dedham, Boston, anywhere else. It doesn't matter if you simply spread the word or simply make donations. It doesn't matter. All of this has worked together. This has been an absolute massive gathering of people that have contributed to the whole in their individual ways that have made a great, great thing. And by sharing GiveSendGos, by donating to these GiveSendGos, by holding the signs, by doing all of this, we have seen big results. And we continue to see big results. And we're going to continue to see those big results as the days roll by. And it's happening. It's happening. And there's a lot of people out there that have probably been the victim to some degree of members of the state police, members of the Canton police that are sitting out there for a long time saying, I knew this person was no good 10 years ago. I knew this person was no good 5 years ago, and nobody really would listen, or nobody would really, it wouldn't get the amplification that it needed. But now you look at Michael Proctor, we're going to talk about this later in the program. They're looking at all Michael Proctor's cases from the past now. All these old cases are being unearthed. They're looking more and more into those. The microscope has come out, and they're looking at this and saying, what happened here? What's going on here? And you know, what else has he done? And there might be some cases where he did some other corrupt things. There might be some other cases where maybe they were routine. There was no foul play. I don't know. But they're going to look into all this stuff. And everything he's ever done now is going to be scrutinized at such a high level that who knows what else this is going to bring out now. And there's about 19 cases, other cases tied to the Karen Read case / Michael Proctor. That's incredible. And why is have I been on mute this whole time? I hope not. I don't think I have, but I just noticed my headset was on mute. My microphone was on mute. Can you guys hear me? I just looked at it and it was red, unless I accidentally hit it. I'm going to wait for everybody. So, no, I have not been on mute. You're fine. Okay, perfect. I don't know why it said I was on mute, but it did. Streamer, we can hear you. Okay. So, thank you. So, you know, that's what I'm getting at here, is that there's a lot that ties into all this. And the thing is, KY Maverick's in the chat. I like KY Maverick a lot as well. He has a lot of great information he posts on his Twitter page. Give him a follow on Twitter, please. He's also making sure I'm aware of information as it pertains to Kelsey Fitzsimmons recently as well. New information that comes out. So I appreciate KY doing everything he does as well. But we look at what's going on and what else is going to come out here. And there's so many people that are anti-Karen Read. They're anti-Turtle Boy. They're anti-Kelsey. They're anti-Sandra Birchmore. They're anti-whatever. And they want to tell us that we're frauds. They want to tell us that we don't know what we're talking about. They want to tell us that we've been wrong, that it's all in our head, that it's all in our imaginations. Big game tomorrow. And that's just ridiculous, because it's fairly obvious. You know, there's a saying, by their fruits you will know them, right? And there's other phrases that you see people in long term who they truly are, right? What they're truly all about, what's really going on, and all that. And my nose always itches. I think it says I run a fan in the background to keep the noise centralized to the mic. And my nose on the left side always itches every show, and I get embarrassed. I'm like, I don't want to be like itching my nose every 10 seconds on this show. All right, enough of that. All right, we'll move on. But look at what's happened long term. The suspensions, the firings. You had Chief Berkowitz, the late Chief Berkowitz's son, just give his resignation this past week. I don't know what that's all about in full actuality, but I would say, if I had to venture a guess, that would probably have something to do with what's going on. And there's Proctor's texts, things out there that might reflect on Chief Berkowitz that could tie back to his son. I don't know. I can't say anything other than speculate, but there's something that is out there that's about to bring a lot of people down. And people have mentioned the movie Copland. And in the movie Copland, Sheriff Freddie Heflin, played by Sylvester Stallone, gets into it with a lot of cops that are very, very corrupt. And in the very last portion of the movie, right at the very end, when Robert De Niro is narrating, he talks about all these people that went down in the police departments and the mob, all that stuff. And it just it just trickled down. It was an absolute waterfall of people going down that were corrupt for a long, long time. And while it's just a fictional movie, it does have a lot of attachment to reality in the sense that it can happen in real life. And a lot of people have called this Copland, and that's really what it has been. And it's a cops against cops story. It was Sheriff Freddie Heflin and Ray Liotta's character, Figsy, and Superboy Maury Babbage taking on, Robert Patrick, Harvey Keitel, a handful of other police officers. And they had cops in the New York Police Department and the local New Jersey Police Department, all interconnected. It was maybe not New Jersey, but New York cops that were living in New Jersey. But it's all tied together. And all those people ended up going down at the end, whether they got killed, whether they got arrested, whether they got indicted, whatever you want to say. That's what's basically happening here. You're looking at these cops that we've said, this is a cover-up, this is a frame job, this is a cover-up, this is a frame job, this is a cover-up, this is a frame job. We've said it 1,000 times on this show, on all these other shows. We've all been saying it for the longest time, that there's something wrong here. There's something bigger than Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. There's something bigger. And all throughout all of this, we have seen the evidence start to unearth as time goes on. Michael Proctor, they just said it on Channel 25, Boston 25 this week. Ted Daniel. It turns out that Michael Proctor has more ties to cases than we originally expected, or someone said that on X or something. I heard it. But that's what's happening. That's what we're starting to see. Is you're starting to sit here and you're saying, look at these people. This is bigger. I always say this in my life. I've always said it since I was about a teenager. Things are often a lot bigger than they seem. If you think it's this big, it's probably that big. Because there's always so much you don't know. There's always so much that we don't know that we learn about down the road. And that's what's happening right now in this Karen Reed case. Even though the trial's over, how much are we learning right now? How much is Karen learning right now? How much is Microdots putting out in his program right now with more information that we may or may not have known? And if it is information we've known, we may know more information about that information. It's expanding. It's expanding. Yeah, please see Copland. Please see the movie Copland. It's a great watch. I always recommend Copland and Jack Reacher. Those are the two movies I always recommend to watch when it pertains to the Karen Reed case, because they have a lot of parallels as it pertains to that. I am happy to be live on the air right now. I am happy to be ranting and raving like a MazzaManiac. Can I be a MazzaManiac? I don't know. But that doesn't matter. But this is what's happening. These people tried to suppress this. You can only suppress things underwater for so long that naturally float before they pop out of the water and go flying somewhere. That's what's happening here. That's exactly what's happening here. The trial's over, sure. The civil suits are ongoing. No question about it. But this is getting bigger. The trial ended 5 months ago. You still got all the local media. How many articles do I have in open tab windows that I'm going to read later in this show that are open right now? They're still talking about it. NBC 10, Boston 25, CBS, Channel 5, maybe not Channel 5, but all these other networks, they're all talking about this case still. They're all talking about all of it. Glara's here. What's going on, Will? Good to see everybody. MazzaMania. That's funny. Yeah, see Copland. It's a great program. A comment that just came through from the Yuri channel there. That's funny. But I won't read it or repeat it. But yes, this is what's happening. And this is, we might still be here talking about this stuff in 5 years. We still might be finding out stuff 5 years from now. You look at everything that goes on in other cases. You look at other murder cases. You find out that down the road, other information came out, like John Benet Ramsey, who was murdered, I believe, in the 90s. They're still talking about that case. I think there's new information coming out in that. You know, these things don't ever, you know, the trials come and go, but the information continues to outpour, you know, as time goes on. And these guys might think, well, you know, it's on Karen, put it on the girl, put it on the girl, you know, but then as time goes on, more information comes out. So these people that all have dirt on their hands, that were a part of framing Karen Read and covering up the murder of John O'Keefe, time is against them because time is ever present. And 5 years from now, 1 year from now, 5 years, 10, 15, 20, there could still be information that's coming out here. I could be sitting here, my head fully gray, hopefully not bald. I'll take the gray hair. I can dye the gray hair, but the baldness, I don't want baldness. I could be here at 65 or 70, 85 years old. I'm 85. I told you guys back 40 years ago. No, I was kidding. But, you know, this is what could happen. I mean, these people that are behind all this, they can't sleep. You know, someone tried to say, well, the FBI investigation was closed and Mazza's a fraud. That's what somebody said about me and X, and that's okay. I don't take it personally when people insult me because people are free to insult me as much as they want. And when they usually do, you know, they're usually wrong. I don't know. Maybe they are. I don't know. But they, you know, but yeah, you can call us all frauds. You can say we're all wrong. You can say whatever you want. Exactly. But that's what they're going to do. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. But at the end of the day, guess what? The truth always comes out. And I would say, from my own standpoint, if we were wrong about all this, then all of these officers that are out here, whether it's the Canton PD, the state PD, whatever, I'm going to venture a guess. That if Karen Read had really killed John O'Keefe and all of this stuff was just our imagination and we hallucinated that Karen Read was ever innocent, and by some chance two juries did not convict her, and we were just all completely wrong about everything we said. We were just completely wrong, and anti-Karen Read was completely right. Mark Cunningham in the house. What's going on, my guy? If all of us were just absolutely wrong, hypothetically, then I'm going to venture a guess that every single person that has retired, been reassigned, been fired, been suspended, quit, whatever, I would bet they would all be in the same exact position today that they were 2 or 3 years ago. I would not guess that a lot of them would be rehomed. A lot of them would be fired. A lot of them would be suspended. A lot of them would be under investigation. All that tells you, the offshoot from the inner portion of the Karen Read trial, all that tells you is that there's something very, very wrong here. And if they're all being rehomed, suspended, fired, quitting, retiring, whatever, that tells me of it in itself that we're just as right as we all thought we were in the first place. And it shocks me that anybody that ever thought Karen Read was guilty can even possibly continue to make that argument to this very day, because the truth is just coming out more and more as we go on. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. All right. And that's it. That's all it needs to be said. We did not believe Karen Read did this. We do not believe Karen Read did this. The evidence, ARCA, Dr. Marie Russell, proved to 2 juries that this didn't happen, that Karen Read didn't do it. And you have people out there like, yes, she did. Yes, she did. I'm surprised if Karen Read did this, that more of those people weren't outside the court. I'm surprised that all the blue shirts that showed up in the summer of 2024, where were they during the trial this year? If they believed in what they believed so much, why weren't they out there? Why weren't they out there with blue shirts? Why weren't they holding organized picketing, arrest this woman? Why weren't they doing it? Why weren't they doing it? Because we were doing it. Collectively, we were doing it. We have people that are still doing it right now. People are still going after the Canton Police Department to rid out all the corruption that they believe still exists to this very day. We have people still fighting for Karen. We have people still showing up for court for Karen right now in her civil trial, civil hearings, I should say, prior to trial, to this very day. We have boots on the ground to this very day. People still show up for Karen to this very day. Because we believe she's innocent. Because we believe that she doesn't deserve what she gets. We have people that believe that this should have never happened to her. We believe that she was being framed. We believe that John O'Keefe's murder was covered up. And throughout all of this, where in the world is all the justice? Brian Hale's here. What's going on, man? My guy. Throughout all of this, where's the justice for John O'Keefe? Where's the justice for John O'Keefe in all of this? Well, we're going to try to find that path. We don't know what that path is, but I do believe that continuing to talk about this case, continuing to talk about this matter, continuing to do what we are all doing collectively as well as individually is that path. That DA's office can't rule over Norfolk County the way that they thought they could. They can't push people around. They can't bully people. They can't scare people off. And we're going to continue to stand tall, stand proud, stand brave, and stand boldly as long as we must. You know, they all thought after Karen Read was acquitted, we'd all go away. But no, there's a lot of people still out there on the front lines of this thing. You have people supporting Sandra Birchmore. You have people supporting Kelsey Fitzsimmons. I'm very passionate about the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case. Super Squirrels in the house. I'm very passionate about the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case. It bothers me a lot. Legacy plays every Sunday till justice for Boston police officer John O'Keefe. That's what Dennis Sweeney's doing. Legacy plays, ladies and gentlemen. Vetero said today that there are 20 cases now involving Proctor just in Massachusetts. It's incredible. And I think that's just scratching the surface. I think that over time, there's going to be more and more cases that are unearthed as well, that they're still digging through. They're still sorting through. So we'll be standing by for that number to increase because I truly believe that it's going to. But yeah, like I said, if we were wrong about all this, why are all these cops moving on, giving their resignations, being fired, being suspended, being put under investigation? You know, we look at what's going on now. North Andover, Kelsey Fitzsimmons, her GiveSendGo is pinned to the top of the chat tonight. You know, is that more corruption? Is that more chaos? Is that more of a, pin it on the girl type situation? It certainly feels like it. Certainly feels like that's what's happening here in Massachusetts, and it could be happening across this country as well. And, we're tired of seeing this happen. We're tired of seeing it happen. We're done with it. We're over it. And it's time to continue to raise awareness for anybody that needs it. Sandra Birchmore, wasn't necessarily as big of a movement for Sandra, but collectively it was basically paired with the Karen Read case. So many people that support Karen Read support Sandra Birchmore, which is fantastic. Some similar situations there, similar tie-ins there that have gone on. And Sandra Birchmore's justice and for her unborn baby. And I like that additional indictment for the unborn baby. This needs to be done. There needs to be justice for Sandra Birchmore. This girl should still be alive. Her baby should have been born. And some very foul things went down. And Matthew Farwell thought he could get away with it, and he just simply couldn't. And I think people need to be held accountable for murder, for corruption, for abusing their badges. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's gone on here is the abuse of the badge. And this is not anything against cops across the board. This is against cops that are specifically corrupt, against cops that are specifically bad. And I don't know what kind of cop Michael Proctor was prior to the Karen Read case. I don't know. I don't know if Michael Proctor might have had like a pretty good record, could have been an upstanding person. And then maybe one day he said, yeah, I'm going to do a favor for some friends and help pin it on the girl. And I'm going to say all these nasty things about her, and I don't know. Or maybe he was always that way. Either way, it don't matter because this guy is an absolute, what, and has absolutely been unreal and unbecoming as a police officer, and rightfully dropped his appeal because what's the point? You're not. Yeah, I like that point, Sherry D. That's exactly right. Being an objective thinker, though, I always try to look at things from both sides. I'm not trying to be favorable towards them as much as I am trying to say, let's just look at it. Because what I'm saying is regardless if he was the best cop in the world or the nicest guy in the world prior to that, he revealed himself as, being everything we've said about him. So I guess that's the argument I'm trying to make. But this guy, who knows what they're going to find with these other cases that tie in? Is there going to be a much longer history of corruption than expected? Are there going to be other people that were wrongly imprisoned or had things pinned on them prior to that? So those are the things that we're looking for right now. Those are the things we're looking for. And what we've seen just solely off of Michael Proctor's involvement in the Karen Read case, it's a horrible look. This is an abysmal look at a human being whose text messages were awful. They had awful things to say about Karen Read, awful things, extremely awful, disastrous things that he is ashamed of. At least so he says. But is he really ashamed of it? I don't know. Jennifer Stockdale, what's going on? But that's the issue here is that, police officers like to say, and, they'd say, well, you got pulled over today, but this is probably not the first time you've had a traffic violation or sped, so we're going to give you a ticket today. Well, the same can be said about cops. They got caught. They got caught, or they got bagged on what happened with Karen Read. But that's probably not the first time they've ever done anything like this. Because, look at it objectively here. Obviously, Michael Proctor did what he did because he believes that he could have gotten away with it. Now, I wonder if he could go back in time and do it all over again, would he just say, I'm not going to have anything to do with this? But that said, he did it. And all these officers that were involved, that had a hand in what went on, they all did it because they believed they could get away with it. No cop is ever going to do something dirty unless they believe they can get away with it. Because the last thing they ever want to do is put their job on the line, right? The last thing they ever want to do is lose their badge. That's the last thing they want. So that tells me that whatever they did, and we know all about that, they believed that they felt that they could get away with this. And they believed they could roll with it and say, we'll pin it on this girl. She'll plea out. She'll take the plea and Karen will just whatever. And we're just going to walk away hands clean. Because Karen stood her ground, stood up and fought. Guess what? Look what's happened. Look what's happened. Look what they did to Turtle Boy, right? Went after him and he covered the case. It's all very interesting stuff across the board that only leads in the direction that this was the cover-up you thought it was, and it was the frame job that you thought it was. And we had a big week here in November. First week in November. Big week. A lot of news. A lot of information coming out, didn't we? And that's what's going on. Yeah, and I think there needs to be respect for John O'Keefe's name. I'm not sure who just popped up in the chat there mocking John O'Keefe, but we don't appreciate that. You're banned. We're not going to mock John O'Keefe. We're not going to mock his life. We're not going to look at a YouTube account pretending to be John O'Keefe. That's not acceptable behavior. That's not acceptable at all. People should not be mocked in death in any way, shape, or form. That's not funny, and that's unacceptable. We have banned that user and their comments today. We are out here for justice for John O'Keefe. We've been told that Karen Read supporters don't support John O'Keefe, but that's wrong. We want justice for John O'Keefe. We want anything to happen in favor of getting justice for John O'Keefe and anything to lead that information to show even further that it wasn't Karen, but even further towards anyone that was involved. And we have our ideas. We all have our ideas. We all have our theories. I saw that comment. I kind of was like, it's kind of so caught up in talking. I'm like, yeah, that needs to be removed. That user needs to be banned as well. It's not funny. It's not cool. This man lost his life, and we don't really know what happened besides what we theorize. We don't know exactly who was involved, right? At an individual level, meaning who contributed to his death in what manner, who contributed to the exact deciding of the plot. We don't know. We do know his body was left for dead out in the cold. We do know his body was dragged. We do have an idea of the individuals that it probably is, no question about that. But John O'Keefe's death should never be mocked by anybody. And that's something that is not cool at all. And it's downright despicable. And I don't like to ever have to not attack, I would say call out and confront someone in the chat for that kind of comment, but that's just not funny at all. And it's sickening. And even if you're trolling and you think it's funny for yourself to troll, well, troll in a way that's more, make fun of somebody else, I guess. I don't know. But don't make fun of John O'Keefe and death. That's just ridiculous. And it's sickening. And, I do think it's horrible that, it's sad that Karen and O'Keefe's family are not on the same page, that they see her in the light they do. It's disappointing. I don't want to ever see, such a butting of heads between the Reed family and the O'Keefe family. It's sad to see. But I want all the truth to be revealed for all, to see truly who was involved, at what level they were involved, who had a hand in everything. And for one day, John O'Keefe to get true justice. But justice for John O'Keefe is never Karen Reed going to jail. Freeing Karen Reed is the path to justice for John O'Keefe. We have freed Karen Reed, and now more information as time goes on needs to come out. I'm hoping that the feds one day will reveal all and say, this is what we know. This is what we found out. This is our findings. This is what happened. And, these were this was John O'Keefe's killer or killers. These were the people that had a hand in the cover-up and the frame job, and everybody gets penalized to the strictest level of the law based on their offense and involvement. That's what I'd like to see. And that's what needs to happen, quite frankly. And that's just the way to put it, I'd say. But it's sickening to me that this man was murdered, and his murder was blamed on somebody who didn't do it, and that these people to this very day and time have not been brought to justice. And I hope that the feds will do what they've done in the Sandra Birchmore case, which was bring down Matthew Farwell, and hopefully do the same to anyone that had a hand in it. I never name names because I don't know what level, or whether small or high or indifferent or none, or maybe more than we thought did, but that's why I always try not to name names. But because you never know what the measures are in terms of involvement. But we do have an idea, right? We do have an isolated idea of who that could be. But like I said, I want justice, damn it all. And it will come. I hope it does come. I hope the feds do bring these people down and all that. So let me I don't have a PayPal. I have a Cash App. So people are asking about a PayPal. I have Cash App. I haven't done it in a while. Let's put it right here. I usually don't mention it. But it's here. I think that's my Cash App. I haven't used the thing in so long, I don't even know, quite honestly. But that's okay. Let's make sure you double check so you don't send it to the wrong place. I hate to mention this stuff on the show. It's just I try to avoid it, but we'll do it as people are asking. Here's a grifter, doesn't even know the name of his own Cash App. Yeah, $sign Mark MazzaMedia. Here's a grifter that doesn't even know his own Cash App name anymore. There we go. But yeah, I would rather have people. Here's the thing. I would rather have you send the money instead of sending the money to me. Send it to Kelsey Fitzsimmons. GiveSendGo instead. But let me get this off the screen. Ridiculous. No, send it if you want to. Hey, instead of sending me the PayPal money, you want to send me. Go to the GiveSendGo for Kelsey Fitzsimmons and donate the money there instead. Why don't we do that instead of that coming my way? Why don't we send it to Kelsey? Kelsey, yeah, I'm failing at grifting horribly here. Yes, that's exactly right. But yeah, let me put Kelsey Fitzsimmons. I would actually like to have people send the money here instead, because this will help out Kelsey. So here it is. Kelsey Fitzsimmons defense fundraiser. Actually, it's not a fundraiser. I used the wrong pre-screen. We should do the fundraiser next week, though. We need to do another one. Here it is. The Defense Fund GiveSendGo. So here it is. Send the money here instead. Yeah, send the money here. instead. There you go. If you want to, instead of PayPaling me, help out Kelsey Fitzsimmons. That'd be fantastic tonight. That would be, instead of mentioning my Cash App, let's talk about Kelsey. So that'd be great. Thank you. So let's talk about Sergeant Goode, who did not have a good week. So I'll just, I'll just read it out loud. Let's do this. MazzaMedia fails in grifting in a spectacular way tonight on MazzaMedia Live. But yeah, I care about Kelsey and what's going on with her, and I think those funds would be better used in her hands. So those are my thoughts. But here we go. All right, a member. I'll share the screen too. All right, let's share the screen. Okay, here we go. I'm going to take a look at how this looks. Yeah, let's add it. There we are. Looks pretty good. Let's enhance this just a little bit more. There we go. How does that look on screen for you guys? Pretty good. All right, pretty good. I'll move my picturing down here. Actually, no, let's go with the other way. No, not that way. Yeah, that way. All right. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it. All right. Now, let's see. All right. Now, this is about Sergeant Goode. A member of the embattled Canton Police Department has been placed on administrative leave following allegations of misconduct, the town and interim police chief said Monday. All right. Tab here. Okay. The officer was identified as Sergeant Sean Goode, who is now the subject of an internal affairs investigation, according to an updated statement released by Canton and interim police chief Joseph Perkins. So it looks like to me, I don't want to speak on behalf of people in Canton, but it does look like to me that there's more satisfaction out of this interim police chief. I'm sure very easily in comparison to former police chief Rafferty, that he is making some moves here. He is getting some things done. All right. So the town of Canton and the Canton Police Department take this matter. This is a quote. Take this matter very seriously as this concerns an active and ongoing administrative investigation. No additional information is available for release at this time. So the officials haven't shared details on the nature of the misconduct that Goode is accused of. All right. A statement released earlier Monday didn't identify the officer, citing laws governing employee privacy. However, members from the town, what was it there? Not the town select board, I think it was town hall, town officials had confirmed that it was Sergeant Goode. That's where the confirmation came from. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. So that's the information that came out there. The officials said they were notified on October 24th of allegations of misconduct concerning a member of the town's police department. Immediately after learning about the allegations, the town said it hired an independent investigator to conduct a thorough administrative investigation into the allegations. The town, and this is a quote, the town and the town's police department take all allegations of misconduct seriously. Members of the town police department are expected to perform their duties in a professional manner. The town is committed to providing the quality and level of service that the citizens of Canton deserve from their police department. The initial statement said, quote, to that end, we will take the necessary steps to ensure the actions by individual officers do not jeopardize the quality and level of service. So this is fantastic that this is going in this direction. And we're starting to see a situation in which officers are held accountable, officers are looked into, and I think at the end of the day, this is why body cams are necessary. Like we talk about that with Kelsey Fitzsimmons so often. Body cams are necessary. You look at the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case, it's a he said, she said. She's in jail for matters not related to what actually happened in the house, but to not being able to take a breathalyzer when she was never charged with any alcohol-related crimes. In this situation, again, what are these officers doing? How are they doing it? Why are they doing it? What's happening? What do we know? What don't we know? These are the questions that I ask myself when it comes to these particular officers. These officers are public officials. They come with a very high level of responsibility. Police work is a highly scrutinized job. And under no circumstances can you have officers acting above the law, out of the best interest of the law, out of the best interest of the public. We don't know the full spectrum of what he did or may not done to high, low, or indifferent? Could he be involved in Proctor texts? Things like that. So there's a very high level of information that could be going on. And that's all it needs to be said, is that this guy, to some degree, had a hand in all of this, and that's being called out. We don't disagree. It is pretty standard to put an officer on paid leave pending an investigation. Not sure if people don't know that. Yeah, that's what they're citing. I know that there's a lot of controversy right now from our standpoint that we don't like the fact that he's getting paid, but it is standard from what I've seen as well. Someone makes a good point here, though. If Rafferty was still the chief, it would be business as usual. Until that point, there's been no action until the interim chief took over, which validates that point as well. And I'm sure to this day, he would have never got suspended or placed under investigation by internal affairs. But the Canton Police Department came under intense scrutiny during the high-profile Karen Reed murder trial, with several of their officers testifying, including Goode. Reed was ultimately found not guilty of murder following her second trial. It was not immediately clear if the current investigation has anything to do with the Reed case. Well, I'm going to say to myself that I'm going to bet that it is. That's my level of speculation. That's what I'm thinking. I'm willing to put money down that says this is probably what happened. KY Maverick says, Benjamin Berkowitz, the son of former Canton Police Chief, the late Kenneth Berkowitz, also has resigned this week as well. That is correct. It's there's a lot of changes going on, and there's a lot going on that's being speculated right now. What is the Proctor factor in all of this? Does Proctor impact the investigation under Goode right now? I would bet on it. Is Berkowitz's resignation a result of what's being looked into Proctor, or is anything that leads to his dad? Scott McGinnis is in the house. What's going on, Scott? Boston for a show. Have a great night, Scott. Have a great night out in Boston. Hope you enjoy it. You deserve it. I hope you have a great night. You've been boots on the ground for a long, long time, my man. You deserve to have a great night and enjoy that show. All right. So, yeah, I mean, Chief Berkowitz no longer he passed away. No longer an active cop, obviously. Your son resigns. How can you not sit there and immediately speculate that this may have something to do with what's going on behind the scenes as it pertains to the Karen Reed case? So I would say, yes, there's probably a 99% chance all of this has to do, from Berkowitz's resignation to the suspension of Goode, all has to do with the Karen Reed case. And that's been the fundamental foundation of what's gone on in Canton, right? No question about it. So we're going to see what ends up happening. But at this point, I don't see anything that can lead me in a direction to say that Berkowitz's resignation was not done with intent, meaning something must have gone on out there. There's information about to come out that could come out that they know about. And the police department could know all about this right now. They could know about it. The Berkowitz resignation could have been the chief saying, look, resign or be fired. I don't know. I mean, that could have been a situation that played out. We don't know. But, that's interesting stuff. That tells me a lot's going on right now in the Canton Police Department. There's a lot of information that they may know about. And who knows, in time, we might look back and say, gee, right around October, November, we later learn months from now, maybe next March, for example, we find out all kinds of information we never knew. And it all goes back to October, November 2025. I mean, that could be realistic. But I'm on the outlook for that as well, to see what happens in that regard. All right. An independent audit of the Canton Police Department commissioned amid the backlash over how it handled the investigation into Boston police officer John O'Keefe's death and the Sandra Birchmore case was released last spring. The company hired to conduct the audit found there were mistakes made the day O'Keefe's body was found, including evidence collection. It is determined that O'Keefe's body should have been photographed before it was removed from the scene. See, that's a very huge statement. Why wasn't that done? Why wasn't that done? I agree. Personal cell phones should not have been used, and officers should have remained on site until a secondary search for evidence took place later in the day. So everything was wrong about what the Canton police did at that time. But the audit also said there was no reason for residents to be worried about the integrity of the police department. Well, I think we beg to differ there. All right, that's the final sentence in that. I did not enlarge this, did I? All right, we'll remove this. Yeah, he was Chief Berkowitz, and then he had retired. That is correct, Martha. All right, let's move on to other information. Let's talk about Michael Proctor. All right, so I'm going to get this out of here. Let's talk about Proctor. The good, the bad, and the Proctor. All right, zoom level looks good on this. Now my page has changed. Stand by for one moment, folks. I apologize. All right, ads popping up all over this page. All right, stand by. All right, let's talk about Michael Proctor here. All right, let's get this shared. All right, and let's minimize. There we go. All right, here we go. All right, more cases involving Michael Proctor are under review. Michael Proctor, fired over his handling of the Karen Read case, is no longer attempting to return to the Massachusetts State Police, but his potential impact on other cases remains. So, as you know, he's gone. As you know, he's dropped his appeal. And as you know, this is tying into other cases, which could be a treasure trove of information. So, disgraced former Massachusetts State Police officer Trooper Michael Proctor is no longer fighting to get his job back, but his investigative work is still attracting the attention of defense attorneys. Proctor was fired in March because of his handling of the Karen Read case. He served as the lead investigator into the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Read was ultimately acquitted of the most serious charges against her, including murder, at the end of her second trial earlier this year. Recent court documents show the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office has examined nearly 20 cases involving him. So someone said in the chat earlier that Betterow confirmed 20. We recently knew about 19, so that verifies the 20 right there in the article. Not that we never doubted Betterow, we trusted him, but we see that NBC has now also updated the number, and that's the point I'm making here. I'm not surprised that let me get water here. Sorry. All this talking and reading kind of tires out the voice quite a bit. All right, so 20 cases. I'm not surprised that the number is high before we're done. It might even go higher, said NBC Boston legal analyst Michael Coyne. That's my theory, too. There's no telling. There's really no limit on how high this could go. And that's going to be something of grave concern. Is how many cases could this tie into? We don't know, but that this could have a major domino effect. And quite honestly, it's already having a domino effect, as we see right now. 20 cases, and it's going to grow. It's going to grow. We're just scratching the surface here. And that's going to be very interesting to see how many tie-ins this has and how much effect it has on other cases. This is a very, very big deal. And like I said earlier in the program, I'm sure there's people that have had run-ins with Proctor in the past that are like, 5 years ago, I had a run-in with that man, and I knew the guy was dirty then. There's always those people. That's one thing you learn about life is that when something happens, there's always people that have had some kind of affiliation or run-in with certain people way in the past, and they kind of come out of nowhere, and they're like, let me tell you about him. All right, I had a run-in with them many, many years ago. So that could be, what you find out with all these other cases as well. There could be people that are in jail right now because of some of these officers. We don't know, but we're going to find out. And that information is coming to the light now. Prosecutors were ordered to review a federal investigation of the Read case and turn over any evidence beneficial to the other defendants whose case involved the former state trooper. So there you go. Prosecutors were ordered to review a federal investigation of the Reed case and turn over any evidence beneficial to other defendants whose cases involved the former state trooper. That's huge, ladies and gentlemen. That is absolutely huge right there. What kind of information is out there? We're in the right to ask questions about this. We are truly in the right to ask questions about this. And who the hell knows how this is all going to pan out in time. The cases were identified as part of a document involving Brian Walsh, charged with the murder of his wife, Anna Walsh. Proctor investigated the case as well. Anytime that you can use some of these mistakes that he's made to help put doubt in the minds of the juror, that is precisely what they want. That's what they're. Let me stop again. That is precisely what they're supposed to do, Coyne said. I lost my reading placement. All right. It is unclear what, if any, information was given to the defendants, with a lot of the details coming from Proctor's cell phone, right? Remember, Tom Brady destroyed his cell phone during Deflategate, Coyne said. Come on, Coyne. You don't need to bring that up. We don't want to talk about Deflategate. Come on. That's all right. Most people would not want their phone examined. He turned it over in part thinking that he had deleted some of this information, but as we're learning, things are never deleted forever. Yes, the phone has a way of maintaining information and keeping record of it. And who the hell knows what's on there? Who knows? Who knows what's on there and who it ties into and how this all comes together. But it doesn't look good for other people that he's had affiliations with, other people he's texted, other people he's communicated with, and what else? This could be an absolute bombshell, and it probably is going to be. All right, so he probably deleted all the stuff he thought would be incriminating, right? And then turned his phone over. But they have ways of getting that information extracted out of phones as well. All right. Interest in Proctor's phone activity is not new. During the state's first trial against Reed last year, which ended in a mistrial, he acknowledged in his testimony that he sent offensive texts about the defendant to his friends, family members, and fellow state police troopers during the investigation. He did not testify at the retrial. Coyne compared the review of Proctor's investigative work to the case of Annie Dukin, the state criminologist who admitted to tampering with evidence, prompting a review of thousands of criminal cases. You're not going to see anything of that magnitude, Coyne said. That is small county. It's Norfolk County. But again, it does tell you when the evidence is tainted, the defense attorneys are going to dig deep. The judge overseeing this process has ordered for the federal evidence pulled from the investigation to be saved instead of being destroyed, which is a great ruling. I want to make sure all that information is retained and is kept in good standing here. But this is huge. Who knows what other cases this man's been involved in that we don't even know about that could be under any level of investigation. And I'd have to mention, I have to feel that the feds probably have, have to have some kind of eye on all of this stuff without question. I don't doubt it at all. I do not doubt it at all. So let's take a look. I'm going to read this next article here. All right. Karen Reed's federal investigation impacts more cases than previously thought. All right. This is by Mass Live. It's had a lot of great articles, especially about Kelsey Fitzsimmons. All right. Here we go. All right. Norfolk County prosecutors reviewed confidential materials turned over from the federal government's investigation of the Karen Reed case for evidence that it could benefit defendants in 19 criminal court cases. It's now 20. Court records show. It remains unclear if prosecutors distributed the federal materials across all, let's say, 20, some of which have already gone to trial. In 12 of these, say, 20 cases, prosecutors filed protective orders for federal grand jury materials, suggesting they either had turned over or planned to share documents. And it leads back to the Norfolk, the Brian Walsh case. Now, this is something about Krupp here. Norfolk Superior Court Judge Peter Krupp ordered the federal government not to destroy any materials it turned over to the state prosecutors during the Reed investigation. The order was entered a day before local prosecutors returned to the trench of documents turned over to them back to the feds. State prosecutors first gave notice of the possible return or destruction of the material in July. A federal court order required the district attorney's office to dispose of the material 30 days after the end of the Reed case, which concluded with her acquittal on June 18th. That order was eventually extended to a deadline of October 31st. A series of hearings on the issue. I'm not even sharing this, am I? 1 moment. All right, let's zoom this in. I didn't even realize I wasn't even sharing this whole time. Bush League, Mazza, Bush League. All right, there we go. Now you guys can see it. All right, good. All right. A series of hearings on the issue were held before Krupp, but the hearings only addressed 5 cases, those of Bianca, Ciancio, Giovanni De Los Santos, Sean Johnson, Miles King, and Brian Walsh. All but Ciancio are charged with murder. All right. In the 14 cases in the remaining 14 cases, all but 2 defendants are charged with murder. The exact contours of the federal investigation are not known, but multiple witnesses who testified at the Reed trial were summoned to appear before a federal grand jury, including former Massachusetts State Police Officer Trooper Michael Proctor. When Proctor, who was fired this March, testified before the federal grand jury, he was asked about the failure to conduct a proper investigation in the Reed case, according to a lawyer representing Walsh. Much of the information lawyers sought access to from the federal investigation concerned Proctor. Attorney Rosemary Chapicchio, who represents two clients whose cases involve Proctor, said there are 3 different categories of information she and other lawyers sought access to. Those are searches performed on Proctor's work phone, searches on his personal phone, and whatever else the government turned up during the investigation in the Reed case. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there. And like I said, this is all, what is this going to lead to? What could be there? And they want, Scapicchio wants a lot of information. And that's interesting that she's going, beyond the work phone, personal phone, right? We know about, and whatever else the government turned up. So that's all interesting stuff. It really is, because I mean, who knows what it's going to bring up? And it's only going to further, bring to attention the lack of credibility that Michael Proctor has. And that's extremely important to bring to the forefront here why he shouldn't have a job anymore, right? Not that they need to prove that any further. But it's going to bring out so much more information that pertains to other people that are involved in all of this as well. Michael Proctor has always been, in my opinion, the path between all parties involved in the cover-up and framing of Karen Reed, meaning he's the central figure. He is like the pit of the fruit. He is the person that ties between everything the state police did and everything we believe the McAlberts did, everything we believe the Canton Police Department did, right? He's kind of that centralized figure there. And whatever information's on those phones, work, personal, it is very damning information to these other people. Sergeant Goode we talked about. What were the communications with him beyond what we may or may not already know? What are Proctor's communications with anybody else we may or may not know at this time? It's wild to me how much information wasn't known during 2 trials, right? There's still information coming out, right? It's amazing that we didn't, or let me put it this way. It's amazing that Karen Reed and her defense team may have not known, or may have not have had access to this information and still got her acquitted. Could you imagine if Karen Reed was convicted of murder in either the first trial or the second trial, and there's still information that could have been utilized to help defend her that wasn't yet available? And it's just wild to me that more information comes out as time goes on that just proves Karen Reed's innocence more, but also further validates and verifies just how shady some of these officers were. And we'll eventually learn the deeper inner workings of exactly what went down and what went on. And, I know. I know. Rosemary's a force, to say the least. She is awesome. One of the best defense attorneys you'll ever see. But that's what I'm interested in seeing. What are these communications that we don't know? What else went on? And it could be earth shattering. That's to be honest, right? To be very honest about it. You read that. Okay. That third category, restart. That third category would include grand jury material. Proctor's role in the now 20 cases affected by the federal investigation is unclear. He was the lead investigator in King's case, but played a less prominent role in others like Walsh. Records show that prosecutors sought protective orders for material taken from either Proctor's personal or work phone in all but 2 of the cases, right? Let's reread that. Records show that prosecutors sought protective orders for material taken from either Proctor's personal or work phone in all but 2 cases, right? So there you go. Protective orders. Prosecutors sought protective orders for material taken from either his phone or work phone in all but 2 of the cases. That tells me a lot right there on what the hell is really going on. It's all what we always thought, people. There's just a lot more behind the scenes that we could ever imagine. And this could be information that Karen and her defense team may be yet to know. And I think that's been what one of the biggest fights in the first trial was. The first hearing, I should say, for the first Karen Read case was getting access to information across the board. Karen and her defense team were always fighting for information. And even going into the second trial, the hearings for the second trial, Liza Little, I believe, said a few times, we've been seeking whatever information we've been seeking, paraphrasing, since a year ago, since even before the first trial. And that's been what my concern has always been, is access to information for Karen Read and her defense team to have. And it's always been an uphill battle for Karen Read's team to get access to information. And now, even though the trial's over, the second one's over, but not only that, it's case closed, there's still information that could potentially come out to damn Proctor and his, and I'm not saying damn like that damn jerk, but I mean damning to Proctor, that could potentially just bring this thing down even further and potentially lead to who knows what. Who knows what information he deleted? Who knows what that information says? Who knows what that information suggests? And that's very concerning to all of us. This is why this is such a hot story, because what the hell went on? What did this guy do? How busy were his hands in all of this? What did he do? Who was he talking? That's what I mean. I'm actually at this point more concerned about who he was working with, who his communications with. Was it Sergeant Goode? Does the Canton Police Department at this time know something we don't know? Did Berkowitz resign because he had communication? Maybe it wasn't Berkowitz's son. Maybe it was his dad. Other people are suggesting members of the Massachusetts State Police that have been rehomed. Yuri, Tully, among them. Those are names that are popping up left and right in comment sections on Twitter. But this is what happened at Copland at the end. All these people went down. And people that weren't even necessarily tied to the immediate events of what happened in the movie because of affiliation eventually got brought down too. And that's what could happen here. Who knows who's tied to Michael Proctor? Who knows? Could there be other names we've never said before? Could there be people we've never thought of that have ties to all of this? I don't know. But it's obvious to me that the governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey, the district attorney of Norfolk County, Michael Morrissey, and many other people wanted this thing to be very hush-hush and everybody to shut their mouths on this. They did not want to deal with this at all. They did not want this backlash. They didn't want to have to deal with the PR nightmare that this is, which is why they tried to get ahead of the curve, get Proctor out of there immediately. So a lot of times when people celebrate Proctor going down, a lot of times I don't celebrate as much. And the reason why is I feel like Proctor, as much dirt as he has on his hands, I don't feel that he represents the entirety of everything that happened. I think a lot of people agree with that as well. So for me, I know very well, we all know very well, other people need to go down too. And I don't want to live in a world where just Proctor goes down. Just Proctor, Proctor's the one to be the whipping boy amongst all the people that were involved in this. We want to see everybody that's involved in this go down. So I'm hoping this information that's unearthed in time will have information that's very revealing. And it's a big revelation to say, hey, look, all these people had a hand in it. They did this. And what the hell? You know what I'm saying? So in any criminal case, prosecutors have an obligation to disclose any material that could benefit a defendant, including, for example, evidence that harms the credibility of a law enforcement officer. But prosecutors also turned over material in a case that went to trial and ended in a conviction. Jack Liu, a retired Superior Court judge, explained. Let me make sure I enlarge the screen. Thank you, Terry. Terry says, Maz, I love your honesty, no drama. Let's all come together and get back to the truth. Yeah, I just want to be focused on the truth as well. Thank you for that. I just think that there's so much going on out there that we need to work together as much as we possibly can to see this through, to see justice through, and align as much as we possibly can and unite as much as ever. So, Terry, thank you for your super chat, and appreciate that greatly. Additionally, Kelsey Fitzsimmons defense or GiveSendGo / defense fund is pinned at this time at the top of the chat. Please consider making a donation to Kelsey Fitzsimmons GiveSendGo to help her. She has a lot she's going through from being in jail right now. We're going to talk about her next, in fact. A lot she's going through from being in jail right now, not being able to see her baby, and also being a victim of a gunshot wound. So she's going through a lot. Any donation you could make to her GiveSendGo would be extremely helpful to helping her out. So thank you guys so much for that. And thank you, Terry Martins, once again, for the super chat. Let's repeat here. Jack Liu, a retired Superior Court judge, explained that prosecutors were likely seeking to protect the constitutional rights of the convicted defendant. That makes sense. They are likely enabling the defense for a case that ended in the conviction to consider the true value of what criminal lawyers call Brady material. And I look, and speaking of Brady, the Brady list, Commissioner Cox, unbelievable. He says he didn't know Kelly Dever was. That's just, he's trying to fight back on being on the Brady list. It's like, man, no, you know who she was. There's emails that came out about you that show this. You can't hide. You can't hide this at all. Liu said, referencing the landmark Supreme Court case establishing the requirement to turn over information benefiting defendants. Taken together, the recent disclosures appear to show that Proctor could remain a central figure in many criminal cases, even after being fired from the state police. Well, that's what I think. Let's see. I'll read this first. I would see defense lawyers making Trooper Proctor a part of every case he's involved in. I'd be shocked if they did not, said Liu, an adjunct faculty member at Boston College Law and New England Law. Proctor's involvement is likely a freebie to defense lawyers. Yeah, that's exactly right. This is going to have implications on a lot of things going forward. And we're going to see where this all ends up going. But at the end of the day, these defense attorneys are going to have a field day. In any case that's going on, this man, well, he's no longer with the state police. Well, his appeal, he dropped his appeal. This man is going to be going to court for years now, and by my estimation, at least Karen Reed's case. But now you're looking at his name being dropped in a lot of other mentioned in a lot of other cases right now. This is something else right here. Thank you, Lisa, for that message update. But yeah, this is going to go for a long time for him. He's going to be making a lot of appearances in court. It could be, estimated. But, the state police are done with them, but these cases could still keep bringing him into court for years on end. And it's extremely notable. That's all I have to say is this is extremely notable information to suggest that he is, his hands have been busy. And like I said, who knows what Proctor's done in other cases. Has he been dirty, as dirty, more dirty, less dirty than he was in the Karen Read case? We'll see. But, does he also have a history of working with other, we look at Proctor from his affiliation as it's pertaining to Karen Read, but what about all the other cases he's worked on? Has he had any text messages? This is why obviously they want his phone records, work and personal, because what else has he communicated in other cases? Has he ever been involved in other frame jobs, cover-ups, for all we know? I don't know. I'm speculating. But he could, and that's a pretty big thing, right now. And who knows what other officers out there could be involved in other cases. So this is a concerning thing, but I think that the most important part is that officers are as transparent with the public as they possibly can be, that they elude being corrupt or acting corruptly in any way they possibly can, because, this is what can happen to you. Michael Proctor could often be looked at as an example among officers going forward in this state and others as what not to do. Again, he involved himself in the Karen Read case because he obviously thought that he could get away with it. He obviously thought losing his job, losing his badge, losing his gun would never be a penalty, never an outcome. But it has happened to him. And he has been basically revealed as someone that acted in a manner unbecoming of his badge. And that comes with repercussions. And he deserves what he gets because he did what he did. And Karen Read didn't and shouldn't have had to have spent so much time in court. This state owes Karen Read a very large paycheck for all the time she had to spend losing her job, losing her freedom for, in terms of getting a job, always being looked at by people as a murderer when she was not, all because of this crime scene investigation at 34 Fairview Road for a state police officer that had a lot of affiliations with people in Canton, to say the least. And it's quite sickening. It is. And, we don't want to really spend our time having to talk about these people, but they've done what they've done. We're here talking about them because they put us in that position, meaning they made themselves known. They made their, no one put Michael Proctor on television except for Michael Proctor at the end of the day. I mean, when you think about it, right? His name was popularized. He was called into court because of his actions, because of his involvement. The Massachusetts State Police made a decision to fire him. He tried to appeal it. He decided to drop his own appeal. And it's sickening. It is sickening that we had to go through, Karen had to go through all this. Karen's family had to go through all of this. That John O'Keefe does not still have justice. An officer that was slain going on 4 years. In 3 months, it's going to be 4 years, which is absolute madness. This has been a long uphill battle for many people. And corruption in our police cannot stand. Officers need to be held accountable. And it doesn't limit itself to the Karen Read case at all. In fact, who knows what's going on as it pertains to Kelsey Fitzsimmons, who is in jail at this exact moment. He is in jail at this exact moment and pending appeals, and we're hoping for the best for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Kelsey Fitzsimmons, GiveSendGo is at the top of the chat. I'm going to grab a drink of water here. I'm going to grab a drink of water, which I just did, and post her GiveSendGo. If the mods are here still, I don't know if the mods are still here, and everybody's busy. It's Saturday night. Please share this link. It's time to free Kelsey. There's a window of opportunity right now that's arising that could get Kelsey Fitzsimmons out of jail. Hopefully relatively soon. Hopefully by Thanksgiving. She should have never gone back to jail. Many argue she should have never been in jail in the first place. If you're not familiar with this case, essentially she was sent back to jail because she couldn't do her breathalyzer test, which was an in-home house arrest breathalyzer test. And she's physically unable to perform it because she was shot. and had trouble breathing and had trouble putting all the breath and all the force into it to pass the test without having extreme pain. Essentially, this breathalyzer was like a torture device for her, and she couldn't complete it. So as a result, she was unable to do it. She was brought back into court. The judge, being absolutely awful, decided to send her back to jail instead of saying, well, we know you were shot. Let's give you another test to take. If you don't do it again, we're going to have to send you back. Didn't even give her that opportunity. Just sent her back to the slammer. No questions asked. Unbelievable. Presently, she resides in Western Massachusetts, where anytime she does come to trial, court or a hearing, it's all the way up near Salem, and it's a long ride. It's a long ride. It's about 2 hours, depending on traffic, to get from Western Mass to Salem. And it's very sad. It's a very sad situation, but there is light right now that is shining that could possibly result in her release very, very soon. So we're hoping for that, and we have some news. So let's get the news here. All right, so top Massachusetts court to review North Andover officer's appeal to be released from jail before trial. Kelsey Fitzsimmons is being held at the Western Massachusetts Regional Women's Correctional Center. All right. Editor's note, the details in this story may be disturbing for some readers. All right. The state's highest court will reportedly review an appeal from the North Andover off-duty police officer who is seeking to be released from jail ahead of her trial in connection to the shooting that occurred at her home over the summer. All right. The Boston Globe reports that Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court will consider Kelsey Fitzsimmons' appeal of the order that landed her back in jail in mid-September. All right, so this is good news. You guys might remember that the Massachusetts Supreme Court also looked into Karen Reed's appeal of the first trial. Is it more like 3 years? Probably with traffic, right? It's probably 3 hours on that. I know when I did the GPS, it came, or the Google Maps, it came out to 2 hours, 4 minutes. But when I did that, it wasn't with any rush hour traffic. So, yeah, it's probably, it's anywhere probably tack on another 30 minutes at least with all the traffic. It's a Mass Pike, mostly across. So, yeah, it's probably like 3 hours. I don't doubt that at all based on what time they're driving over there. So yes, they're going to review this, which is huge news. This is what they need. This is what Tim Bradel wants. They want to have the ability to just get this appeal in, get the SJC in Massachusetts to look into this and understand why she was not able to take that breathalyzer. And the judge, Naaman McCarthy, who sent her back to jail, could have taken the opportunity to quite simply allow her the opportunity to say, okay, look, the judge gets to judge, right? The judge gets to make a ruling. The judge gets to make a decision. The judge could have very simply said, look, Kelsey, you've been shot. We're aware of your situation. We sent you home to use that test. You're unable to do it. What we're going to do is we're going to have someone sent to your home to administer a blood test, whatnot, and if anything happens again, if you refuse to take it, whatever, she could have maybe made a ruling like that. She didn't have to just say, you're going to jail. You couldn't take the test. Tim Bradel, you didn't send us the right information to prove her medical history. The judge knows Kelsey was shot. The judge is aware of this. The judge can deny it or whatever, all she wants, but the judge does know she was shot. You know what I mean? It's not, whether or not the proper information was provided by our defense team or not is almost irrelevant, because hell, they know. They know that she had an issue. They know that this is an ongoing issue. She knows. I mean, they allowed her to, when she was under house arrest, she could drive on approved routes. One of them being to court, one of them being to the medical facilities, right, for doctor checkups. So they already knew this. They already knew. So there was no need for that judge to throw her right back in jail like this and not have more of an understanding that, yeah, she probably couldn't take the test. Or, yeah, we can approve her to go to another route. You know what I'm saying? They could have done any of that. So that's all. It's just ridiculous. The 28-year-old has pleaded not guilty to a charge of assault with a dangerous weapon for the June 13th armed confrontation at her Phillips Brook Road home, in which she was shot by a fellow officer as police were serving her with a restraining order and informing her that her fiancé was obtaining court-ordered custody of their child. Fitzsimmons was first freed on personal recognizance back on September 8th with several conditions, including a court-ordered alcohol testing. Now, again, court-ordered alcohol testing. They can do whatever they want with that. Blood, urine, breath, right? But knowing her set of circumstances, wouldn't it have made more sense just to quite simply give her something that wouldn't be breath-related? She was taken back into custody just days later after her lawyer submitted an emergency motion asking the court to modify the terms and conditions of her pretrial release, saying the scram system that she was ordered to use for alcohol testing required her to blow intensely into a tube several times for each test, and that it was impossible for Fitzsimmons to complete it without experiencing, here it is, folks, experiencing severe abdominal pain and dizziness that impaired her healing, according to court filings. So it's a torture device at this point. No question about it. It's very obvious. I understand the judge requires her to do the blood alcohol test. But at the end of the day, did she have a DUI? Did she have any alcohol-related charge that would have placed her in a situation where she would have needed to submit to this? Oh, but no, she's a public threat. She's this, she's that. She's a threat to the community. She needs to be tested for a blood alcohol level at all times. Give me a break. And even so, even if she does need to be tested, have her BAC tested, then let's put her in a situation that helps her out. It's like anything. If something doesn't work out, let's change the approach. The breathalyzer is not the only means of testing somebody's blood alcohol level. Let's give her another form of testing that can help her out with getting the test done, that can help her meet the court's order. That's pretty much it. There's no need for Kelsey Fitzsimmons to be in jail at this time. It is ridiculous, and that is undisputed. The motion prompted an Essex Superior Court judge to vacate the court's prior order of lease, and she ordered Fitzsimmons back into custody to be held without bail due to dangerousness. All right? It's not like she was someone that had a DUI and was not taking the scram test. It's not like that's what this was at all. This is not the case. It's not like she violated something that pertains to whatever might have been the reason why she was put in jail in the first place, which is heavily disputed. He said, she said, between Kelsey and the North Andover Police Department. But it is extremely controversial that this judge made this ruling, and it is outright ridiculous. Because, again, what the hell? Was she intoxicated when that happened? No. Give me a break. Fitzsimmons' lawyers then asked a Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court justice to overturn the judge's September 11th ruling revoking Fitzsimmons' bail, but a single justice of the state's highest court upheld that ruling last month. I had a big issue with that as well. And one of the things I'm tired with is the SJC. They seem to me to take, I wouldn't necessarily say take the side of the judge, but they have more favorability to judges' rulings. It's almost like they say, okay, you're appealing this. Well, the judge is an adult. The judge is a judge. We're just going to let the judge make their ruling. To me, I don't feel that they take enough time to fully grasp what's going on. And this was a significant matter in the appellate court last year before the SJC, when Karen Reed and her attorney Weinberg argued before that court why Karen Reed's charges from count 1 and count 3 should have been thrown out and should have never been on the second trial, right? They just kind of said, trust in Auntie Bev. Auntie Bev's a judge. She knows what she's doing. We're not gonna accept this. Even though Weinberg made great arguments, made great points. So it bothers me a little bit that I feel that the SJC is not looking as deeply into these things or taking these as seriously as they should, in my opinion, because I think more of this needs to be looked at. The SJC said Tuesday, however, that it will consider Fitzsimmons' appeal. That's great, according to the Globe. The court did deny Fitzsimmons' lawyer's request for an oral hearing, though. That's actually a great argument by Bradel to have an oral hearing, which I think should be done. But, they're going to just make a ruling. They're just going to basically read it, review it, and come back with a ruling. So it's stressful. It is stressful because you don't know what's going to come of all this. But I can understand why Bradel would want to have that oral hearing to make their arguments. I'm just hoping that this SJC has got it and can come up with the right ruling. But the thing is, though, between the Karen Reed case and this, we haven't seen a favorable ruling in favor of Kelsey or Karen up to this point. All right. Based on the record, we are persuaded that the appeal should proceed. The court's order said Tuesday, the Globe reported. As Fitzsimmons has no other means of obtaining adequate appellate review of the pretrial detention order, this appeal may proceed with full briefing in the ordinary course. The court did not indicate when it will consider Fitzsimmons' case, the Globe added. Fitzsimmons' attorneys have previously criticized the judge's rulings to revoke Fitzsimmons' bail following their motion, describing it as a completely improper nightmare scenario that ensued. Fitzsimmons and her lawyers have also previously pushed back against the police account of what happened that night, with Fitzsimmons previously saying she never, as alleged, pointed her gun at officers, claiming only that she pointed the weapon at her own head. Fitzsimmons, who is being held at the Western Massachusetts Regional Women's Correctional Center, is due in court next on November 25th, the court reports. Meanwhile, she is in probate court at the end of October, was in probate court at the end of October as she continued her fight to be reconnected with her infant son. So, yeah, it's a shitty situation all around, to say it in the least, folks. It really is. It's really a tough situation for her. I think the number one thing I'd like to see of all of this, if I could have just one thing immediately, is just to get her out of jail. Get her at home, even if she's in house arrest. That way she can at least be at home, and that's the minimum. That's the minimum worst case scenario. Then from there, everything else can be dealt with, trying to get her kid back, battling her health issues, medical issues, and battling, these charges as well. But the first thing I want to see is her out of jail. When she was first released from jail in September on the 8th, that was good news. That was great. That was a step in the right direction, for her and her path forward here and fighting for justice for herself and her child, was to get her home first and foremost. Then from there, take it from there. So we're going to continue the fight for her to help her out, and you can help out by donating to her GiveSendGo, which is right here, folks, in the chat. I'm going to put it on the screen right there. That's Kelsey Fitzsimmons GiveSendGo /Defense Fund. It also helps out with her medical issues and just some varying issues as well, other matters or concerns as well that she needs. So you're helping her out defense-wise, health-wise, and then just variously across the board as well. So that will help her out. You can help out Kelsey Fitzsimmons. It's a case that I'm following that I am very passionate about as well. For me, it's my new Karen Reed case in a sense, right? I figured that, this channel, was very much used for helping Karen. I'd like to use this channel again for helping anybody else. And Kelsey Fitzsimmons is the case that I kind of decided on would be the right case for me. In terms of interest, in terms of things that bothered me about it to cover. I just kind of feel like this is a case for me that I can help out. We've raised almost on the show over $9,000 for Kelsey Fitzsimmons through 3 or 4 fundraisers so far. And Allison says it best. Let's get Kelsey home for the holidays. I think that's definitely huge to help her out and get her back home, and having Thanksgiving dinner, at her home. And unfortunately, the battle for her custody of her child continues, but, at the very least, can she have Thanksgiving and Christmas at home and all that. So That's definitely what we're looking to do here and continue on doing that. So please make a donation to Kelsey, help her out. And, it's a tough situation all across the board. And we'll get another fundraiser going for her. I didn't have much of a plan this weekend for a show, so I didn't know. I actually pondered doing a show late last night. Didn't do it. Too tired. Pondered doing a show earlier today. Couldn't do it. Wanted to deal with yard work. Now I'm doing the show now. But we'll try to get another fundraiser for her as soon as next weekend, and I'm hoping she's out as soon as possible. I know that the Tim Bradle's team needs to file I think a motion or something for that, but I think it's already done. But then I think it's like a 10-day review from that point onward for Kelsey Fitzsimmons hearing. I have it here. One sec. Here it is. Justice Serve reported yesterday, Kelsey Fitzsimmons' case is now set for briefing. That's what the SJC. Monday, November 10th, is her deadline to file with the full panel if the Supreme Judicial Court. Then the Commonwealth response is 10 days later, and they suggest she could be out by the holidays, which is great. So that's good. That's good. That at least that's a step in the positive direction right now. Kelsey's got so much stacked against her right now that we need to start seeing victories for her. And on September 8th, we did. 2 months ago, we did. And then 3 days later, she's off back to jail. She's been almost back in jail now for 60 days again. And this is just, it's just, I just don't feel like this is justifiable. I just don't. I understand that there's a concern about what happened in the House. It's a he said, she said. I get the judge's argument that she wants to make. I get it. But I don't see any situation where Kelsey Fitzsimmons is an immediate threat to anyone. I mean, I don't see her as a threat in general, but I will say this. On an alcohol-related basis, which is the foundation of the argument the judge made to put her back in jail, I don't see how alcohol in any way, shape, or form is a threat to the public where she needs to be locked up in Western Massachusetts right now. I don't see where that's justifiable. That's not justifiable. So that's my argument. I disagree with the judge. I do. We should all disagree with this judge. And I just think it's an awful decision. And I think this judge, again, and I said this earlier a couple times, she could have considered the alternatives for Kelsey based on her medical situation. It's not like she was, fully functional and healthy, meaning no gun wounds, no gunshots, none of that. It's not like, okay, well, she didn't do a breath. It's not like me. If I had a breathalyzer, you had a breathalyzer, we could actually physically do it. It's not like we're physically limited from doing that. She's physically limited from doing that. This is like saying to somebody that's confined to a wheelchair or crutches, if you can't run a mile today, you're going to jail. You can't put somebody in that situation. That judge should have simply said, okay, you can't do a breathalyzer. You've been shot. We know you've had a medical condition. We understand. We're going to adjust this right now. Blood alcohol by blood taking. Two options. We can send somebody to the house, the Massachusetts lawyers talked about that. They said they could have sent somebody to the house, or they could have just approved for her to go to a local facility to get that blood work taken. But the breathalyzer is not one size fits all for everybody. When people have medical concerns or medical limitations that prohibit them from taking that test without severe pain, and that's that's all needs to be said, and so interesting comment here. Let's read it. So maybe she's a crazy drunk. We don't know yet. Maybe she had a drinking problem. We don't know that yet. So that's what I say back to the judge too, is if you really can't confirm her alcohol habits, but I still say too, regardless of her, people drink all the time. People are out right now at bars all across the East Coast drinking right now. Was there an alcohol-related charge though? That's what my argument is. If there's no, it's not like she had a DUI, right? And even if she did have a DUI, so let's say somebody was driving under the influence, got in an accident, they had an injury that prohibited them from doing a breathalyzer. Even then, that person should still be offered a blood alcohol if they got, say, home arrest. But that's what I look at with this. It's, why not just give her the option of a blood test, or at the very least a urine test, for the love of God? You're going to send her to jail, cost taxpayers money because we got to send her to jail. It's like, come on, this is not, this is not a situation that I would say is of that level of concern. If that judge wants to make an argument for home arrest because it's caught up in a he said, she said over the, did she point a gun at the officers? Did she point a gun in her own head? Like I can see like the judge's argument for trying to say, well, let's put her under house arrest just because of what happened in the past. But the blood alcohol thing, the test, come on. She can't help that. I figure she's at home, she's in house arrest. Worst case, that's how it should be. Kelsey can argue and her defense team can argue from there. The case at hand, well, what did transpire in the house that night, and then proceed forward with steps to attempt to get her baby back based on her stance that she merely put the gun to her own head. And that's it. So that's where I leave it. So that's my argument for tonight. Again, Kelsey Fitzsimmons, GiveSendGo is pinned to the top of the chat. There's also information in the description on how you can help out Kelsey. You can write to Kelsey, too. If you want to write to Kelsey, there's information on Twitter. There's a Twitter link there. There's a Facebook group that I think hit 5,000 people recently. So there's a lot of information. Exactly. And I like this, too. This isn't a guilty or innocence issue at this point. It's all about due process and accommodating her disability. That's exactly right. That is the primary reason why at this hour she remains in a jail cell for nearly 2 months and potentially counting. And God forbid the SJC does not rule in her favor. That's going to be an issue as well. If they rule against this, then who knows how long she's in jail for, which is an absolute problem for me as well. So that's all that needs to be said. So guys, thank you for tuning in. Please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel. And have a great night. It's Saturday night. I was glad I got the time to do a show today. I don't know when I'll be back again. We'll see. But other than that, Karen Reed's free and free Kelsey Fitzsimmons. Thank you, Leslie. You're welcome. Yeah, I know. That's all right. It's all good. It's all good. Yep. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Karen Reed's freed. All the best to her. And we'll continue to support her. And then free Kelsey Fitzsimmons, who does not belong in jail. Thank you guys for your time. I'll have a Kelsey Fitzsimmons fundraiser coming up as well, in hopefully next weekend, I hope. So thank you guys for your time. Have a great one. From MazzaMedia, I am Mark. Goodbye. Over and out.